everybody, at least those who are supposed to speak and be active in this meeting, but we hope that everybody will be active. So good morning to everybody. Again, huge appreciation from GLOBSEC for your participation and making time for this webinar, for this discussion. It is part of a broader set of events which GLOBSEC agreed with Minister, in particular with Minister Heger from the Ministry of Finance. As you know, it is all linked to the process of developing a proposal for recovery fund and recovery mechanism. We agreed with Minister Heger and his team that GLOBSEC should focus primarily on issues related to the investment opportunities linked to structural reforms which are already defined and which are very important for the implementation of the recovery plan, and also to identify areas where private sector could be a partner for public sector, because although there is a lot of money on the table for recovery fund, but we know that the needs are even bigger, and it is important that public money can leverage private sources and can bring private companies into specific projects and into the implementation of the recovery plan. So it's a great opportunity for Slovakia, but at the same time a challenge how to define recovery plan. And obviously the issue of car industry, mobility, restructuring of the car industry is very important for Slovakia, which is heavily dependent on car industry as an important part of its economy. So we are very happy that we have this discussion for today. Appreciate your time, and especially time of state representatives. So I would go straight immediately into the presentations, initial presentations, so we can jumpstart the discussion itself. And let's start with State Secretary Jan Oravec from the Ministry of Economy. The ministry obviously is a critical part of defining the future of mobility and the car industry restructuring process, which is linked to the overall global changes in car industry, moving from the fossil fuel, or dependence on fossil fuel, to new types of energy resources. So maybe Mr. Oravec, if you could tell us, or Janko, if I may say, Janko, if you could tell us how you see and how the ministry defines the area of mobility and how it fits into the recovery plan, and especially where are the investment opportunities and how private sector could be engaged in this process.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you very much, Vazil. I understand that the major topic of this meeting is the Recovery and Resilience Plan. Mm-hmm. And we are talking about the Recovery and Resilience Plan because of Corona crisis that started back in March in our case. And of course, the government responded early in the March to the crisis. And of course, now I am not going to spend my time debating whether the government is doing enough or not enough, because it's never-ending debate if the glass is half full or half empty. Just let me make one remark on all government emergency response to the crisis. I would say that when it comes to the structure of adopted measures that are there to help businesses to survive this critical situation, I would say in our portfolio of instruments is everything what is used also by the other countries, starting with this huge program of Ministry of Labor that is helping businesses to keep people employed, continuing with many measures helping the companies to overcome the problem of liquidity. For example, the second largest amount of money that was made available to the businesses after Ministry of Labor comes from Ministry of Economy, because we have made the decision back in March to move 330 million of euro funds to Slovak Investment Holding, and then they designed this they designed anti-corona measures that will basically cheap loans and guaranteed loans for the businesses, and expected amount of loans provided to the private sector is more than 600 million euros. And until today, I think the amount of loans that was provided is about 6,000. So the government is doing a lot of things. The structure is similar as in other countries. What I agree with the critical remarks of the businesses is that the timing of the measures and of course the help and the assistance could always be quicker and could be more targeted. But again, as I say, it is never-ending debate. What concerns specifically the car industry and Recovery and Resilience Plan, I remember, or I recall, we had a debate just before the elections that was organized by the ZAP, the organization representing the automotive industry, and that was specifically devoted to the issues of automotive industry. And that debate, I was part of the panel. At that time, the candidate, but the current Minister of Finance, Mr. Heger, was part of the panel. And when I was listening to the list of problems, as was identified by the car makers, at that time, at that debate, I said, these are really the problems. I see the very similar way, the most important and pressing problems identified by the car makers. And most of them even can be generalized, that they apply to all businesses, not only to the car makers. They are part of the problems of the business environment. And one of these crucial problems we have is the, I would say, the quite large burden of our businesses as compared to the foreign competition. That is the result of combination of two factors. Number one, it is the financial burden, taxes, contributions, and many other mandatory fees, and the regulatory burden. And what we have written in, we have put into our government declaration is as a big priority to reduce the burden for businesses in order to be more competitive on international level. Of course, the financial burden and its reduction, I mean, the result of the tax and contribution, this issue is the issue for the more ambitious tax reform. And we are debating this. It should, if there would be no corona crisis, I'm sure we would have the tax reform already implemented as of January 1st, 2021. Since we needed to focus our attention to the corona, I think the 2021 is the year for the preparation of the ambitious tax reform that will address the problem of high financial burden of our businesses. In the meantime, we have as the Ministry of Economy, focused our attention to the regulatory burden and the ways how to cut it. Of course, you know about the first package of what was called Lex Corona of the Ministry of Economy, 115 measures, small measures that can contribute to the elimination of problems with the administrative burden for specific businesses. In the meantime, we have prepared the second package with 469 measures, and we are now prepared for consulting these measures with the responsible ministries. But what, from my point of view, the anti-bureaucratic packages that are very important, but 10 times more important than the anti-bureaucratic packages are systemic measures. How to prevent the costs of doing business going up and up and up as a result of newly adopted legislation. And how to prevent it? I can tell you that we are preparing a silent revolution in this area when it comes to the legislative process. And it is also the part of the Recovery and Resilience Plan, because the Recovery and Resilience Plan has the small part that is devoted, one component of that is devoted to the better regulation. And the major pillar of this better regulation strategy from our point of view is implementation of so-called one in, two out principle. And it is the systemic way how to cap the costs of doing business that are increased by new regulation. And later, as of January 1st, 2022, how to systematically reduce the costs of doing business as a result of a newly adopted regulation. It will be the responsibility of the ministries when they come with a new regulation to identify what are the costs for businesses. For example, if the Ministry of Transportation will design the new regulation, and this regulation will increase administrative costs for businesses by €1 million. As of January 1st of next year, 2021, the responsibility, which is the new responsibility of the Ministry of Transportation, will be at the same time to propose reduction of administrative costs of doing business in their responsibility by equal amount, €1 million. 1 year later, it will be doubled. If I will be the reason for increased costs of doing business by €1 million, I am responsible for proposal of reduction of €2 million of administrative costs. So it's one in, one out first, and then one in, two out. So I think if we will be successful, and it is not clear, we will see if the government will adopt that proposal. It is written in the government declaration. It is part of the Recovery and Resilience Plan. And if implemented, I think this will be the major improvement for all businesses, including the car makers. And the final paragraph, what I want to say in this introduction on specific intentions for car making industry. We are very happy that we have a car making industry in Slovakia, that it is representing major part of our industry, and that Slovakia is still one of the most industrial parts of European Union. And we have we will do everything in order to keep that fact, to have Slovakia as the industrial country and to have car industry as the important part of that industry. And for that, of course, there is a long list of measures that can be adopted. Even the previous government started this specific dialogue with the car making industry. I think many people represented here have a track record of these debates with the previous government. Today, we are making a sort of reflection on all measures that were adopted or promised by the previous government to the car industry. We have a list of responsible ministries, and we are now checking with those ministries what was the progress of the measures that were agreed several years ago. And we will come to the car making industry. We will organize the event where we will debate the current state of the play at this area. and what are the views of the stakeholders and where we need to make more progress, etc. So we will be doing this reflection in upcoming years. What concerns the Recovery and Resilience Plan and specific measures here, I think there is several measures that will be aimed at improvement of whole ecosystem of the industry, starting with the research and starting with the initiatives like Battery Alliance, like the Hydrogen Alliance, etc. So we will encourage all capacities, even research capacities in Slovakia, to help industry to stay competitive and to sort of meet this challenge of global trends where there is a shift of car making industry in terms of batteries, hydrogen, etc. Of course, we will be helping to create the physical infrastructure for example, for charging stations, etc. So we have a list of agreed initiatives that will partially maybe funded from Recovery and Resilience Plan, but also everything needs to go hand in hand also with the Euro funds that will be there available for businesses. And my last point is that when we are thinking about all these measures, we are thinking how to help businesses, how to help Slovak economy to restructure, but how to use these EU funds in the most sort of market-driven way. So part of that may be also the grants, etc., subsidies, but my intention is that if there will be the subsidies, it must be in combination with the financial instruments like loans, etc., because the commercial aspect of the whole exercise is very important because, and that's my last sentence, what is our common interest is that we want to be the more competitive economy. And in order to be more competitive economy, we need to use the commercial ways how to get there, not to use just subsidies because the government cannot use all its money available just for that specific instrument. That is from my side everything, and I am looking and listening carefully to the other contributions as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. State Secretary. I think it was a clear message that, as if I understand correctly, it's a combination of measures. One, in improving the overall environment for the entrepreneurs, for companies, decreasing the burden of administration, as well as a burden of taxes and other mandatory expenses on the companies. I think this idea of one in, two out is excellent because obviously companies are over-regulated in Slovakia, and we need to give them a little more freedom and space to breathe and to develop. Some of the specific measures for the Recovery and Resilience Plan, as you mentioned, including the creation of ecosystem from R&D to the production, I think is very important. As well as enabling infrastructure, for example, the charging stations and market-driven type of support, a combination of blending of finance in terms of grants and loans and commercial funding. I think it's very important. Actually, I want to ask, because I know you have some other meetings, how much time do you have, Mr. Varavec?
I can stay with you until 11, so it's okay.
Okay, great. So then I would go, if you agree, I would go with the other speakers, and then we can open for discussion. And okay, thanks a lot. Thank you. So I would ask another State Secretary who is with us, Mr. Ažaltovič, from the Ministry of Labor and Social Affairs. Obviously, this is a very important issue because I remember myself when I was Minister of Economy that this was one of the issues which was quite often raised by potential investors, which is does Slovakia have enough skilled labor for additional production of cars and for the auto sector? So it is a critical issue for attracting investment into Slovakia. And how do you see in your ministry, and especially what measures could be undertaken within the recovery plan to support this area.
Thanks a lot. I will try to be brief. So what we done for recovery and resilient facility preparation? I will start with something Mr. Oravec already mentioned, and it is a chapter called fiscal reforms. So what we made and what we know that it will be in the RRF reform part, without the need of a money from recovery and resilient facility, are two reforms. One is pension system reform, and the second one is the introduction of permanent short-time work scheme, something also automotive entrepreneurs asking us to do. So regarding to short-time work scheme introduction, the permanent one should be in place from January 1st, 2022. We finished consultation with entrepreneurs. We are now in a stage of preliminary consultations where impact on public budget is calculated, and in the beginning of January, it will go to standard legislative consultations. So we would like to propose it to government by the end of February, and then we expect to be approved by this, our National Assembly, so Slovak Parliament, by the end of the May 21. So as I mentioned, in force from January 1st, 22. Regarding the pension reform, I will not mention details because they are under discussion. What I would like to mention is that we are discussing, the Slovak Republic is discussing with the European Commission if the reduction of social contributions will be part of the RRF or not. So if it could be financed from the Recovery and Resilience Facility, there are a number of proposals. There is a proposal made from SAS, there is a proposal made from Olano, there is also a proposal made from our ministry. We calculated that we think that affordable could be lowering the social contribution rates by approximately 6% from 1st January 22, but this is a topic under discussion with European Commission if it will be eligible from RRF. What's the new thing we are discussing with European Commission is the strategy for reduction on human capital flight. So let's say the turn brain drain into brain gain. This should be the common responsibility of Ministry of Labor with Ministry of Finance. So this strategy should include steps like undertaking the need of skilled workers, creating mechanisms for cooperation with the government, universities, corporations, stimulating inflow of outside talent, some removing structural barriers, cooperating with authorities facing the same challenges, and together with European Union also the strategy for re-migration and brain circulation. And this is already proposed to European Commission in the package of RRF with financing. So we are expecting that a significant amount of money will be available for this. Regarding your question about the trained employees for automotive, we do not see this as opportunity for RRF, but nevertheless, in our target for the next period of Euro funds, it is one of the basic targets to prepare more skilled people also for automotive industry. Regarding this budget, where the RRF is, I would like to mention the Just Transition Fund, which can be used also for training and education. There are 3 regions eligible for this money. Now we are working together also with Ministry of Economy and other ministries on Horná Nitra region, where we already gave first money. So the Ministry of Labor gave first, I think, 12 million euros for retraining the staff from mining companies. but in the next period also the Banská Bystrica and Košice region will be eligible for this money. And I think that in this area there is a significant rise of the money. So until this year we had approximately 30 millions, but going on in the new period 21-27 there will be up to 500 millions of euros, and part of it will be used for retraining the possible staff also for automotive. So this is something what I wanted to tell in the beginning, and then I'm here to answer the questions. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much. I don't know whether you can hear me. Thank you so much. I think it's really important that the Ministry of Labour is actively engaged in the recovery plan. The issue of human capital is of course critical for bringing more investments into this area. I think one of the issues which we may also discuss during the discussion time is how to use in a smart way immigration. It means how to maybe import some skilled labor force from the neighboring countries or some parts of the world which can help. But anyway, I would like to now move to the other speakers, and I would like to introduce and ask Livia Vašáková, who has this tough job of formulating the overall proposal and negotiating with the European Commission. So how do you see the area of automobile industry, mobility? How does it fit, or how does it look so far within the Recovery and Resilience Plan, and what are the key elements, especially looking from the investment and private sector point of view? Livia, please.
Many thanks, Vazil, for the invitation and the possibility to speak. I will start with maybe some general aspects. We had a very big online event this Tuesday where we presented the main areas of the Recovery and Resilience Plan for Slovakia. And these are, I would say, more or less all relevant areas for industry, for the automotive sector, and many of the components were already presented by state secretaries from the Ministry of Labor and from the Ministry of Economy. We are trying to send a first draft of the recovery plan to Brussels for consultation before Christmas. And this is something that definitely will be about something like 80% of the overall plan. We are working very hard with relevant ministries to get this ready in order not to be behind the schedule and be under pressure to provide the plan really on time for the deadline of the 30th of April next year. Regarding the content, we have presented 5 big areas on the online conference, and these areas remain valid. We also provided what are the components below the level of the big areas, and what are the most relevant items in my view is the fiscal reform that will reduce the burden on labor, but on the other hand, we might be obliged to increase taxes on environment and taxes on property. This is something that will not be very popular, and if possible, if the Commission will provide money, it will be just temporary, so it might cover the shortfall of taxes maybe for the first 1 to 3, maximum 3 years, and this will facilitate basically the introduction or the increase of the new taxes. The other big areas, and it was already mentioned by State Secretary Oravec, are in the area of the Ministry of Economy. Business environment comprising also Public Procurement and Construction Act that will facilitate all other areas regarding, for instance, modernization of highways, building of new infrastructure in the field of energy or transportation. So these are, I would say, the enabling conditions and enabling reforms that we will need. What was not mentioned, and what I think is quite important for industry, and not only for industry, but for the whole economy, are electricity prices. And this is something we are focusing in the component on renewable energy with the repowering scheme that has the aim to extend the existing schemes, but also to reduce electricity prices these days in order to make our businesses more competitive vis-a-vis neighboring countries where which all of them have lower electricity prices than Slovakia. We also have a specific component on electromobility. This one is also managed by the Ministry of Economy, and where we envisage to support alternative fuels by building new infrastructure, but also by introducing subsidy schemes for public transport fleets, and maybe also a scheme to support vehicle owners to buy more low emission and cleaner vehicles. For the moment, I would say that the implementation details are at a very broad level, and this is something that we will submit to the Commission in the template that is structured, and this is more or less the level that is required by the Commission at this stage. To finalize the plan, we will need to go to the level of milestones and targets, and this is something where dialogues with businesses will be very important in order to set these milestones in a constructive way, really enabling us to fulfill all these milestones and targets, to get payments from the Commission, because the mechanism is slightly different from the EU structural funds. So meaning that we need to agree on the overall costing of all measures in the plan. And based on this, we will design milestones and targets, meaning that also we will split the money that is coming from the European Commission to Slovakia in time slots that might be maximum twice a year. And this is for us important in order to establish cash flows, but also for us to be able to manage the whole plan and to set realistic targets that we can fulfill in a given time frame. And I think that this time of consultation will come probably in January, February, where we will need to fix all these details in order to provide a credible plan for Brussels. The job is not done, I would say, by this. We will also need to go deeper into implementation level and really know exactly what we are doing with within each component. So what are the steps? Who is responsible? Who will take charge of this particular item in the component? And this is something that will go beyond the requirement of the Commission, but this will be essential for the implementation of the plan. Slovakia has already provided many good strategic documents, mainly for the purposes of international institutions, but the implementation, I would say, is the weakest part. And that's also for this recovery and resilience facility that we need to focus on. And this can only be done if we communicate with all actors and if we can really come up with a realistic implementation part of it. So thanks a lot for your attention, and I hope to stay in touch in order really to be able to fulfill the last steps in the preparation of the plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Livia. I think it was excellent, very brief and very clear. I think especially as you mentioned, this implementation part is really very important, and usually, especially in Slovakia, it's one of the key issues where we haven't been really successful. So the questions, who should do what and how, this is very important. And in a way, what we are doing now is kind of a pre-screen of that discussion, meaning they are trying to engage already now when those areas of targets for the RRP are being formulated, but also when we already have to start thinking about what will happen in the beginning of the next year in terms of the implementation, and how private sector can be part and a partner in the implementation phase. So thank you so much for this. And now I will move to Norbert Kurila from the Office of President of the Slovak Republic. Obviously, huge experience also in the environmental area, and car industry, especially its transformation, is very much linked to also to the climate change and to climate goals for the EU and for Slovakia as well. So any words of wisdom from you, Nora, please?
Thank you very much for the opportunity. I will be also try to be very brief. So generally, as others, I also believe that transport sector or mobility sector has a key role in the economic recovery. It has a great potential to contribute the GDP, but also it has a great ability to innovate. And we need to build, when we narrow down to automotive, we need to build on the success story of existing auto industry present in Slovakia. We see good news and good happenings, like the new rollout of models, like for example by Volkswagen lately, and hopefully we will see more, let's say, cleaner alternatives to be present and manufactured in Slovakia. However, when it comes to significant potential of funding, I would also go beyond recovery plan thinking, and especially would also echo first the EU Structural Investment Fund, but also other instruments when you talk about the large scale funding or financing, especially through EIB, in the lower scale, for example, also through the Slovak Investment Holding, and also other funds and loans provided or to be provided also by the commercial banks as such. Second, I would come to the EU standards, and also, Vazil, you raised the issue of increasing the climate targets or CO2 targets. We have witnessed last week the increase of 40 to -55, which is significant also for the very industrial country like Slovakia. And it might be happening that it could be even more ambitious in years to come, as we have this kind of automatic review process according to the science. So now we have -55, which for the automotive or for the passenger cars business, if you translate it, there is this target of 65 grams of CO2 per kilometer, which means actually around 1/3 of fleet to be electric or alternative by 2030. So we see this huge transformation towards more sustainable, more greener ways of producing cars, very likely mostly electric, battery driven, but also hydrogen and other alternatives. So I would also echo that the standard setting is important and will drive also the changes in the industry. Number three, I would also echo that when we're talking about mobility sector, it is much wider than purely automotive, and making a link with the recovery plan. I think there is a quite strong focus on railways and railway infrastructure. Also, big focus on public transport and long-haul transport, also partially maybe aviation. So we need to see it also in a wider sense, and also very much linked to the digitalization. When it comes to a couple of areas from the automotive, which I find very interesting and important, both for public sector, but also for the private sector, is the further extension of electrification and focus on building charging station, electrification of the fleets, maybe hydrogen, also circular economy, and especially battery business, both for R&D and development side, but also for the production and the associated industries. There was a talk about the Slovak Battery Alliance and, for example, hydrogen cluster. These are exactly the platforms and ways how we can engage effectively with the private sector, how we can set the scene and shape also the legislation and the policy making. Lastly, when it comes to the recovery plan, I would also echo and stress the dimension of the loans, because now we are talking mostly about the grants part, which is very important when we talk about the 6 billion euros. But there's very strong dimension of the loans, which is basically untapped so far, and we need to engage with the businesses and the auto industry how to maybe use also this credit line or these loans that is available through the recovery plan. So I would stop here. Thank you.
Thank you, Noro. I think the points you made, especially about the importance of taking into account when transforming mobility and car industry in Slovakia, taking into account European standards and new regulations is very important. Maybe you noticed, for example, that in the battery area, last week, the European Commission issued a new directive which basically sets key criteria for so-called European standard battery. And these are the kind of things which we have to take into account when developing Slovak industry and Slovak response to this. So thank you. We had, I think, excellent 4 introductory speakers from the public sector side. So let's now shift to discussion, in particular to response and questions, comments from private sector, because this is now critical how we engage private sector into the implementation of these ideas for the Recovery and Resilience Plan. So maybe I would start with Alexander Matušek, if possible, as a kind of spokesperson for the car industry in Slovakia. Any kind of comments, responses from your side, please?
Hello, good morning. I have many comments. I will put something.
I'm sorry, the sound is very weak. Maybe. Yes.
Is it still so, or is it better?
It's a little better, but at least for me, not enough.
Okay, I do my best.
Yeah, now it was good. Yes.
Okay, I do my best. First of all, we have to see where Slovakia is. In the last 4 years, our average on CO2 grew from 125 to 133 gram in average fleet new sold cars in Slovakia. Means we are going completely different direction as we should go. Second, what I would like to tell is we can achieve targets 2030 only with electrical cars. There is no space and no chance to achieve the target with hydrogen, at least if we are speaking about passenger cars. And then the automotive industry, we are focusing in these 4 flagships, means power up, because only if the green energy, we are charging the cars with a green energy, make sense. Second one is renovate. I understand that we need to make a renovation, but we shouldn't forget to put some charging points to every renovated buildings. What is for us the most important flagship is recharge and refuel, because the plan is, or the calculation is, we need 3 million charging points in 2030, and the target would be 1 million by 2025 to have even the possibility to sell the electrical cars, because the customers, they claim there is no good charging infrastructure. We are now by 200,000, and we need to achieve 5 times more. And the fourth is reskill and upskill, and that we spoke about, because we need new skills for the workforce. I would like to tell that the EU funds can cover those to free up other national funds, for example, for purchase subsidies for electrical cars, and we should use any chance. If I compare the charging infrastructure from these 200,000 which we have now in Europe, are 75% in only 4 countries. This is Holland, Germany, French, and one more I forget. Doesn't matter. And if I compare, we have 0.3 charging stations per 100 kilometers, and needed are at least 5 per 100 kilometers to achieve something. Means we have a lot of space to improve, but we have to start, and we have to change. We have to change the registration fee for the cars, because till now the old cars are cheap to register. The new modern and zero emission cars are a little bit more expensive. we have to change the rules, and that could be also the structure, which could be changed and paid by the fund. We have one more problem in Slovakia, which is we are speaking about competitiveness, and that is our waste industry. Okay, we are completely missing the support for circular economy, especially industrial in material waste. There is also space to do something for better condition in the future, because it's a big risk for not only automotive industry, for all the industries. Okay, and we sent to the officialities, I would say, 3 projects. One of them was support for charging infrastructure, and we calculated nearby 260 million, which are needed to do it, because the plans are ready, just the money is not ready, and we could build from this money 30,000, at least 30,000 charging points. But I would like to have concrete discussion then with the public or with the government, what is going on, what we can do, where we are, and what we want to achieve is in this short period of time to use all the money which are available.
Thank you. Thank you, Alexander. I think it was a very clear message that if we want to fulfill the requirements for Europe and for Slovakia in terms of CO2 reduction, for the transport, the key issue will be support for e-mobility, and this will require increase of subsidies for the people and for the buyers of electric cars on one hand, and on the other hand creating the enabling infrastructure, which is especially the network of charging stations. So maybe this is also a question to Mr. Oravec and Olivia, to what degree this is already included or can be contemplated in the policies of the Ministry of Economy and RRP. Mr. Oravec, how do you see this issue of subsidies and support for charging stations? Is it something that is in the plan, and is it reflected in RRP as well?
I think we both mentioned it. I mentioned it in my introduction. Livia mentioned it as well, that it is a part of the debates. It is early to say in which form and in what amount it will be, because it is the subject of further negotiations. But definitely it is one of the pillars of our thinking in this area.
Thank you.
I can only confirm what has been said by the State Secretary. That we are definitely planning to have it in the component. I hope that still before Christmas we will also release the information regarding the amounts that correspond to various initiatives, but so far this is not a public information.
Thank you. Thank you. I see that Petr Švec from PSA, Peugeot Citroën, has a question. Petr, please.
Thank you for this debate, for organizing this debate. It's very important for us. I have 2 general remarks. We are very thankful to very operative and very quick state aid concerning so-called Kurzarbeit. We are satisfied, and we are telling it also openly to media. And the same Ministry of Economy, everything what was done concerning the so-called first kilečko, and then preparation of second one. And it's really a good opportunity also for us, and I hope it will come to some final point which will really help us. I will probably not tell nothing new, but I have to repeat that every one of us is in double, I would say, double trouble. Maybe not a good word, but there is a COVID crisis which we are fighting, each of us somehow, including government, and we are on one boat, I would say. And the second thing is that the competition as such is increasing everywhere in automotive industry, but not only. And so, every day is counting. And from our side, Ministry of Economy is updated detailedly about our projects for new investments. And then there is a list of very concrete projects presented already to Ministry of Economy in energy field, I would say, and environment field. And there we really need to see some support and willing to do the things, because when we are comparing ourselves with other countries, talking on behalf of PSA, there are factories in other countries. We see the reaction much faster, and so there is a space to improve some processes, and especially the price of electricity is a notorious topic of Slovak companies. But we really need to do something, and we know about this aim to reduce TPS and to change somehow the structure of electric price, which we appreciated very much, but we don't understand why it is it is planned to change it only on 2022, not already 2021. I know about the processes, and there is an independent watchdog and so on, regulatory body. But as I said on beginning, every day is counting, and we are really in fight, both on the market generally, but also in when I say our group. There are tens of factories which are fighting for new investments, and Slovakia, as Alex Matušek mentioned, lost very much during last 4 years. Since 2016, we were losing our competitiveness because of many different social packages and these, which increased our burden, the costs, and we are really losing our competitiveness. So we have to do very concrete steps. We appreciated all these activities, and we are really looking forward to see progress in each of these fields. And so this is not a question, this is a remark, maybe from my side, but very important for us to tell you that we need to see very concrete steps of Thank you.
Thank you. I think it was clear appeal to move fast and be quick because of the growing competition. Mr. State Secretary Oravec, if you have a reaction to this.
Yeah, I can confirm that we had several meetings debating these proposals, and I would say, if I'm not informed, if you were in touch with the new leadership of the regulatory body that is in charge, if you are not in touch and the things are becoming urgent, I am here to organize the meeting of you and new leadership of the independent or the regulatory body to debate these specific proposals and to find out if there is some delay because of administrative procedures, or if there are some substantial, differences in positions. So we need to understand it very quickly, and if you will contact me later on, then we can make, we will agree on the process, how to organize a quick meeting on that, okay? So with this response, as I indicated, I need to leave for another meeting. thank you very much for invitation. And I wish you interesting debate in the remaining part of this event. And if those who are the members, I will not see you in the upcoming days. I wish you, given the circumstances, happy Christmas and successful New Year. Thank you and bye-bye.
Thank you, Mr. State Secretary. Thank you, Janko. And also wish you a wonderful Christmas. Thank you. We'll probably stay for 15, 20 minutes more. Thank you. Thanks a lot. So moving to other people from private sector side, I think it'll be very interesting to hear from those who are actually investing into car-related industry from outside. I don't know whether Jürgen or Peter Kompala would be interesting to say how they see the situation from their perspective. So maybe Jürgen, would you go first? I think you are muted, I believe. We cannot hear you. There is a mute button. Do you see it on the screen? It says mute. You have to unmute. We cannot hear you.
It seems to me that it's unmuted, but maybe I jump in. And maybe Jürgen, do you have an external microphone?
Maybe. So Peter, would you go first?
Yes, my pleasure. And hello, everyone. Great to see so many familiar faces and faces I haven't seen, but I've been in touch with, like Ms. Vashakova, because we recently prepared our comments on the Resilience and Recovery Fund. Everything from a perspective of German-Slovak business relations, because we think it has been an incredible success story in the past and contributed to making Slovakia modern and successful already. And we think there's a huge potential in continuing with this. What we did is not only to involve the companies we have here, we also involved lots of companies in Germany. So last week we had a big meeting with these strategic departments of companies in Germany, discussing all the details. And Vazil, you said making Slovakia more attractive, and actually I think with this meeting and all the inquiries we receive, for many reasons, currently Slovakia is very attractive. Like, it really is very attractive, and it's a pity the State Secretary left with this strategy and overall objective of making it more competitive, of having Killage go and taking all these measures. It's perfect for our marketing. So we promote Slovakia in Germany, and it's a great job currently because people really perceive it as a country with potential. Now, what are the obstacles? And State Secretary Ashaltovic, I think this is really the hard part, is skilled labor. And with the comments and the paper we had, we addressed this part with many of the things you mentioned already. Yet still, we are deeply involved, and still this will be very, very difficult. And I think this is where we need to pull on one string, everyone together, all stakeholders, multi-stakeholder approach to really move forward here. And we even have surveys where companies state we'd immediately invest in Slovakia if only we would find skilled labor. Like, this is the situation currently. And the things that have to be done are more long-term and will take some time. The other thing, which is maybe a low-hanging fruit and where we could achieve the same objective faster, is digitalization, automation, and therefore we've addressed this. And from a German perspective, the answer would be Industry 4.0. So, and then let me maybe close with one example. Tesla invests in Germany. Tesla wants to enter the European market. Why is it Germany? With several conditions, even though cost elements are way more expensive than you would have in Slovakia. But maybe it's not the question of like who gets Tesla. Maybe the question is not to to get the gold diggers. Maybe the question is how can you be involved into these gold diggers? And like we now have this norms for artificial intelligence and Industry 4.0 and Gaia X. And I think if we connect these strategies also with the hydrogen strategies, then it would allow Slovakia access. Like the pitch would be, Slovakia is actually a great destination in the supply chain. And like an investment like Tesla in Germany could be fully beneficial for suppliers in Slovakia. I think this should not be forgotten. There's a technological part, and of course we have to keep on working on the skilled labor force. That's it for me so far. Thank you. And maybe Jürgen, Jürgen has an external microphone now. Excellent.
I don't know if, can you hear me now?
Yes, excellent.
Yeah, we can.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Yes.
I'm at a
better. Thank you.
in an external network, so I think I had some problems there. So
Yes.
thanks you for having me joining here. So as you know, Manz is invested in Slovakia since more than 10 years. We are an equipment company, and our major business field in Slovakia is the manufacturing and also the R&D and engineering of battery, e-mobility production lines for cells, module, and pack assembly. So for sure, the topics we see in Slovakia is, administration is a little bit slow. Probably this is also a new getting slower. We see clearly right now inside we start competition between our sites in Hungary and Slovakia. We see that the investment environment in Hungary is getting much better than in Slovakia actually. Also very pushy on the new energy, on the e-mobility topics. So we are doing some things there also. But our key strategy for Eastern Europe, for CEE region is in Nové Mesto nad Váhom in Slovakia, where we want and we are about there to invest in additional space. We also want to invest in additional offices to increase our R&D team, which is today above 35 people working on e-mobility production. But we struggle to get the building permits. It takes a tremendous amount of time. For sure, we also see that we need to invest in education in Slovakia to get the skilled people, not only in the production and in the production related departments, but clearly also in R&D and engineering topics. So cooperation with universities is a big topic for us. Big topic for us is also as a still pretty small international company is getting financing. Would be for sure also interesting to have access to local, to national or EU funding, also in the Western Slovak region, like where we are. Probably also some project funding activities. We very much appreciate the super tax deduction for the engineering team, which we already use today. But there could be probably also some kind of super depreciation on investment in innovation, in building, in equipment which we need for R&D, laboratories, whatever. I think this is the key topics for us. And for sure, we want to stay in Slovakia. We want to grow there. We see also a lot of potentials for us because of the car OEMs switching now to e-applications also. We're in the middle of it, so we want to increase our activity in Slovakia and to be part of the CEE game. Which fortunately finally comes back to Europe. In the last years, we worked only with big American players and Asian companies, and now we are happy to start also cooperations with Tier 1 and OEMs in Western Europe and hopefully soon also in Eastern Europe.
Thank you, Jürgen. I think it's really important points which you made, and especially from a company which is heavily focused on R&D. Because we know that one of the weaknesses of Slovakia is that although Slovakia is the largest producer of cars per capita in the world, but it has very little R&D in this area. So what you are doing in Nové Mesto nad Váhom and your plans are extremely important. And here, of course, we have to make sure that state bureaucracy is quicker and that they have enough skilled labor force and cooperation with universities, etc., to support this R&D activity. Now I have.
And for those who are interested to see such projects, yeah, feel free to contact us and to visit us in Novo Mesto. We have right now battery lines for German, American customers on the shop floor. So always welcome. Great,
thank you. I have two people who already asked for the floor. It's Mr. Ambrovic and then Mr. Czech. Mr. Ambrovic from Volkswagen, please, you have a floor. I don't see you, but please go ahead. Yes.
Thank you very much. I just would like to stress what was already said by Mr. Matuszek and also by Peter Schwed, that for us as a company, as a Volkswagen Group, we have committed ourselves also to the document of the Paris Agreement and the reduction of CO2, and we see only one way how to achieve it. We have developed our own strategy, of course, but there is no doubt that e-mobility will become the mainstream within the next years. The wheel-to-wheel primary energy consumption here, it's really clear that it has to be e-mobility, and there is no other technological possibility, as already mentioned, hydrogen and things like this. In the market of passenger cars and even also the light vehicles, it's not an option. It's not technologically, it's not that way, and the mass production, and it's not probably possible to build such cars. So we have to focus on e-mobility, and in Slovakia we are behind with the infrastructure, which is the problem in this field for Slovakia, and the opportunity on RRF to achieve the goals is huge, and therefore we would like to support the projects provided by the Automotive Association, and here this is the position also of the producers.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Ambrovic. Of course, the recent announcement by Volkswagen to increase the production in Slovakia is a major push for Slovakia and gift to the Slovak country. So thank you for this. Of course, we hope that there will be more and more R&D linked to this as well. And this could be also, of course, important part of moving towards e-mobility and using e-mobility also as a CO2 reduction tool. So I think this is clear, and I believe there will be opportunity within RRP also to implement this. Now, Mr. Czech, and then Mr. Frolich, please.
Good morning to everyone. I would like, because I mean there is much talk about also about the Commission. So as for the Commission in Slovakia, I would like to say a couple of things. First, I think that this is a great event that you are engaging stakeholders. Because in the end, you private sector will be the ones who will be actually implementing, the recovery plan on the ground. And this, I think, it contributes pretty much, to getting the investments and the reforms right in this new animal in town in the recovery plan. So I would like to say that we are in touch, as also Livia Vašáková mentioned, we are in touch on technical preparations, for the plan. Though I think that still the talks are in the embryonic stage. We are eagerly expecting, the submission of the draft plan, which as was said, was the next week. I mean, 80% we would love even more, because it would allow us, to give a more structured feedback, But anyway, I mean, we are in touch with the Slovak authorities, and what I would like to say is it's also the kind of the sense of urgency, because we are working under very tight deadlines. The critical deadline is the end of April, 30th of April, where the final plans should be submitted. And that said, there is not really much time, for the RRP as a whole process, because we are working in the horizon. This is the one-off thing, we are working in the horizon before 2023, where the commitments should be done, and actually all the payments should be requested before mid 2026. So this, this is really really big thing, and as I said, it's we need to move quickly forward. On my second issue is on the absorption capacity of Slovakia. Everybody knows this, that there are difficulties, currently with the current European funds inflows, the framework for 2014-2020, Slovakia stands at only 38%, just a couple of days before the end of the period. This is the figure from the mid 2020. And actually, what Finance Minister Heger mentioned last week at the ITAPA conference, the increase in inflows will be massive. So what they expect, the finance ministry from the EU, is roughly 3 billion for the next year, 3 billion for 2022, and about 7 billion, for 2023. So it needs, a bit of the overhaul of the complete thinking, and absorbing the European money in the right way. And as I would like to underline that, this RRP is not only new in terms of the procedures, but it's also new in terms of the thinking, because we take this as a real investment, because we are borrowing. The Commission is borrowing for Europe at the markets. And this part of the budget will need to be repaid between 2027 and 2057. So this is so this needs to be a productive investment, and we are working hard in order to make this happen. On the debate, I really liked, what Mr. Oravec from the Ministry of Industry mentioned. The involvement of the private sector, it's often forgotten. These are not only the private money, but the public funds should be used, as Mr. Hudák knows very well from his experience from the EIB, should be very well used, to leverage the private money. So we are really looking forward to receiving some suggestions, and we are, as a Commission, we are very happy to look into it and provide the feedback. On the Ministry of Labour, I really like. This is the long-standing issue of the countries in the region, that the reduction in social contributions. This is basically from the right, but then you need to look after the fiscal sustainability, because these are usually the very rich revenue streams, and this needs to be somehow offset. Livia Vašáková mentioned, through environmental taxation. We will be also happy to looking into this, but it needs to be balanced, in terms of the fiscal outcomes. And my last question, my last point on the overall automotive is that I really liked, some strategic thoughts, but just think about how the automotive will look in 2050. We did, as a Commission, we did recently a study on the robotization and automatization in the automotive industry, and Slovakia is actually one of the forerunners in the region in terms of the robotization. There is 7,000 robots per 100,000 employees, which is much more than, for instance, in Hungary or Czechia or in Poland. It's slightly lagging only behind Germany. So just think about. I really like that component that we need to look into more innovation. What Mr. Kurila mentioned in terms of the batteries and hydrogen, and also in terms of the training the labor force, because the future, and as was also said now by Volkswagen, the future is different, and we will need to adapt this. And this is, the RRP can be used not only, for the heavy infrastructure, investments, but also for making change, making durable change, you know, for investing into labor. That's it for the moment. Again, thanks so much. Thanks so much. I'm really happy that I for myself, for the Commission, I can collect these comments, and you can contact us anytime, you know, at the representation in Bratislava.
Thank you, Zdenko. I think important points from the Commission side, including the point about the fact that the money which goes into the RRP will have to be repaid at some point. And that's why it's very important that the investments for which Recovery and Resilience Plan and the money behind are used have to be productive investments which produce additional revenues in the future. And that's why we need private sector as well. Now I'd like to move to Karol Frolik from the Center for Advanced Materials Applications. Please, Mr. Frolik.
Thank you very much. I hope you can hear me. Thank you for giving me space. I try to be concise and short. But my first comment is that we know that to be competitive, we need to be also innovative, and innovation cannot exist without independent research and development. In this sense, we have prepared proposal for a national project entitled National Battery Center, which comprise Slovak Academy of Science, universities, several small and medium enterprises from Slovakia, and this was discussed with Automotive Industry Association, ZAP, and Slovak Electric Vehicle Association, SEVA. And what we like to do within the project is accept research in the field of battery. We would like to also transfer our knowledge and train new experts with the help of universities. So please do not forget that independent research and development should be somehow supported, and we would like to make a proposal for this. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I think very important, because obviously batteries, and we heard from people from the car industry that e-mobility is going to be crucial in advancing and restructuring the car industry in Slovakia, but not only in Slovakia. This is Europe and global problem. And for e-mobility, you need, among other things, you need batteries. So to create a battery development and production environment in Slovakia is very important. So I think the idea of National Battery Center is excellent. And as you know, I was one of the kind of founding fathers of the Slovak Battery Alliance. So I'm very much behind this and believe that this is something that Slovakia should do. Now, I know we have basically we have 8 minutes until we finish this discussion. So anybody, I think Artur Bobovnický from CEA, please. CEA obviously is a very important player in the implementation of the program through the Ministry of Economy. So Mr. Bobovnický, please.
Thank you very much. I hope you hear me.
Yes, very good, very well.
Okay, perfect. It will be very short. I just want to touch a very important point which has been touched by Mr. Knie from Mansen and Mr. Kurila. In time of crisis, it's probably more important than any other time expenditures or spending on R&D. Why? Insufficient availability of financial sources of many companies resulting due to the COVID crisis and economic crisis is resulting at the end of the day with decrease of R&D spending. And that in the future, it is at the cost of future competitivity. Therefore, I think that component 10, effective governance of science, technology, and innovation, is of utmost importance. And it is reflecting the full sense of the name of the plan, Recovery and Resilience. So, but what I'm missing in Slovakia is more discussion on importance of innovation, importance of R&D for the future competitivity. So, and then other point which is really missing, and only Mr. Kurila mentioned that slightly, is the importance of the clusters, clusters and networking. Norbert, you mentioned two clusters, battery cluster and hydrogen cluster. And the clusters, from the point of view of European Commission, are very important lever to get closer to SMEs, and we should try to implement these things in our recovery and resilience plan. That clusters could be beneficiary of the funding, can implement many different R&D projects and accelerate the whole process. So I think that would be sufficient for this moment. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I cannot agree more with you, and I do believe that innovation, R&D support is really critical. Anybody else before we finish? Maybe Mr. State Secretary Ažaltović, any comments from your side based on the discussion which we had so far?
Maybe just a short remark. I didn't mention that there is one special measure which will be implemented also in RRF. I think it's in one of the components. It's long life learning, but we are in discussion what should be what should be there and how big amount of money will be allocated to long life learning. Because more of the speakers were mentioning that what we need in Slovakia next year's will be skilled labor. So I wanted to mention that we are counting with it also in RRF, but there will be not a big amount of money allocated for lifelong learning. We are counting that in Euro funds in the next period of 21 to 27, there will be a few hundreds of millions. And one remark to Euro funds, that I know that Slovakia is not well in comparison with the rest of the state, of European Union, but I have to mention that regarding to European Social Fund, we are the 4th best country within the EU. So from the point of view what we are responsible in the Ministry of Labor, we are the 4th best in the European Union. So we will spend all the money from European Social Fund until the end of 21.
Good.
Thanks a lot.
Good job, and we keep our fingers crossed for good spending. So two more persons, Mr. Jančo and then Mr. Senkarčin.
Okay. Thank you very much for a possibility to speak, Mr. Hudák. So I just wanted to point out it was really great what all the people mentioned with infrastructure needs in case of electric vehicle transition. I see this as a most important point also from perspective of intelligent mobility of Slovakia cluster we are going to make very soon. I just wanted to point out that there is not only transition to the EV vehicles, which is ongoing and will not be stopped, and we have to somehow adapt to this. But there is also the transition in mobility itself. So basically, I believe that we should also think in case of the funding to think more about the mobility, about the smart mobility, which can also be let's say very reasonable investment for Slovakia, because this new intelligent mobility can help us to cover or to solve the problem with the highways, with the roads, and with mobility in the cities as we know it today. without necessity to build up new and heavy roads and new lines and so on and so on. So I just wanted to point out that, of course, it's very, very important to bring up infrastructure for electric vehicles, because we will need it very, very soon, and in big numbers. Whole Europe will have to have 30 millions of such vehicles, and it would be very pity if Slovakia would be last as it is now, because now I think that only one country in Europe is in worst is worse than we are in this mobility, and we are the first one in car making. So it should be somehow, you know, stick together in order to be real part of the Europe. We should also not only take advantages of auto industry, but also show that we are capable to build up new transition. But on the top, I wanted to emphasize this smart mobility as another key tool to make life in Slovakia better and may have air much cleaner. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Very, very good point. Mr. Shenkarchin, please.
Yes, good morning. Thank you very much, Vazil, for this opportunity. I think many points were already said, and I would like just to highlight the importance of the innovation when we talk the RRP, because I think the key point is not to somehow keep the model of economy as it is today, but the major point, or one of the major points of RRP is to bring the real reconstruction and bring the new models to make a economy more stronger and more competitive. And obviously the role of innovation for that is key. Without innovations, you cannot be competitive. So the one point which I would like to address our state leaders is somehow really to implement new policies, and do not forget to promote innovation economy like we see it in Israel and Singapore and other countries also in EU. So that's one point which I wanted to highlight. Another one, just to remind that as much as the battery business or hydrogen technologies are important, but the smart mobility goes much farther beyond these two elements. There are obviously connected cars, autonomous cars. There is an infrastructure, as it was already said by Mr. Jancho. We have huge potential for innovation in mobility as a service and other services which are very linked to digitalization. So if we are talking innovation as a chance for Slovakia to bring the new models of the economy, I think we should very much focus in the RRP on those investments and on those reforms which promote the innovation. And you will not see so many areas where Slovakia can be innovative, like in transportation, which is very closer to car industry, obviously, and there is a really chance to bring the new products, new services, not just on the Slovak market, but also to introduce the Slovak innovations on the global markets. Thank you. That's what I wanted to say.
Thank you very much. I mean, we have come to the end. We promise you to not go beyond 1.5 hours. So thank you so much. For me, some of the key outcomes of this discussion, and I don't pretend to cover all the points, but it was a really very rich discussion in terms of ideas. But it seems to me that there are 4 or 5 key elements. One element, and I'm looking at the issue of car industry in Slovakia through the eyes of Recovery and Resilience Plan. One issue is that obviously we need to improve general conditions for business overall, and this was very well covered by State Secretary Moravec. I mean, decreasing the regulatory and financial burdens on companies, improving the efficiency of the public sector. As Jürgen mentioned, some approvals take forever. So we need to bring more efficiency into that. Obviously, we need a skilled labor force, because without skilled people, nothing new and innovative will happen. And we have to make sure that the general conditions are good for business overall. And then in particular for transport, one of the key elements is price of energy, price of electricity, which is still too high in Slovakia and puts the companies in Slovakia into disadvantage. So that's a kind of general element. Now, when going into the transport area, for the existing producers, it was very clear from Volkswagen, from PSA, from, I think in general, the key issue will be moving towards production of electric cars and creating the environment which would help the producers to move in this direction, which means not only skilled labor force, but also, for example, development of the battery cluster, which would support such move towards electrification of car industry in Slovakia. Battery, hydrogen, these are all key elements, but especially electromobility based on the battery systems and on the R&D which is in this area. The second aspect is obviously smart mobility, which was mentioned by several people. Smart mobility goes beyond electricity or electric production. And by the way, for the production of and e-mobility, I think two issues were mentioned as very important. One is more incentives provided by government for the people and companies to buy electric cars and to implement electromobility in Slovakia. And the second aspect are a support for the charging stations and for developing the ecosystem which is necessary for electromobility to develop, especially the network of charging stations. So the smart mobility as another component is crucial to go beyond just the production and to implement artificial intelligence and innovation into the mobility and use such areas as self-driving cars and others which would support the overall transformation of the car industry and of mobility in Slovakia in general. So again, I was not trying to cover everything, but these points seem to me very clear, very messages from you. What we will do as the next step from the GLOBSEC side, we will summarize this discussion. We promised to Minister Heger and Olivia, as part of Minister of Finance, to the RRP team, that we will deliver not only from this discussion, but also we had similar discussions on building renovation, on the innovation, and also on digitalization. So we will bring these key ideas, especially those which are focused on the potential for participation and involvement of private sector into the implementation. And on the investment side, we will bring this to the minister, to Minister Heger and his people. Hopefully this will be reflected in the overall proposal coming from the Slovak side. And obviously we would like to stay in touch with you to continue this discussion, because as Olivia mentioned, this is an ongoing process. It's not finished with submitting first draft or then final draft in April. The implementation part will be at least as important as the designing part of the program. And unfortunately, this is an area where Slovakia was always behind. We had good ideas, wonderful papers, but not good implementation. So we would like to stay in touch with you to continue this discussion and bring it into specific investment opportunities, projects, and private sector participating in the implementation of the Recovery and Resilience Plan. So thank you very much for your time, for active participation. I wish you wonderful Christmas time. And if we don't see each other before Christmas or end of the year, also much health, much success, and Happy New Year as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye. Thank you.
Started.